Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show, How We Grow. This is your essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business. With advice and insights from the best in the biz, I'm your host, Lynell Gordon. So welcome to How We Grow, the Vacation Rental Show. I'm Lynell Gordon, and I would like to introduce you to my guest today, Justin Ford. Justin, thank you so much for being with us. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, it's I never thought it was a unique background, and every time I talk about it, people are like, "Wow, that's definitely varied." I'm from Maine and grew up in the town, the state that's motto, it's on our license plates, is vacation land. So naturally fell into the vacation industry, but not before I had a background in the U.S. Coast Guard and growing up as a when I grew up, I wanted to be a sea captain, and I actually am. I'm a U.S. Coast Guard license captain. I don't use my license anymore as much as I'd like to anyway. But I just stumbled. It's a funny story. One day I was having a burn behind my house and, just burning some brush and stuff. Got a little out of control, and the local fire chief showed up. And rather than scold me, he said, "We need some guys like you." And before you knew it, I was a firefighter. And so I was a firefighter for 15 years. But in the back of all that, I was also a vacation rental manager. And I started with one home, mine, and grew that to at one point managing as many as 600 homes and developed what became the largest vacation rental company in all of New England. So, yeah, it was boats, fires, and a vacation rental that kind of sparked it all together.
You do have a fascinating background for certain. And what we want to talk about today is whatever you're passionate about. And when we first started, you were talking to me about improving our product. Talk to me about what you think vacation rental managers need to do to help them grow their business.
There's so many people out there offering advice now, and I watch all these different, get rich type of things, and there's conferences and super properties and all this stuff, but I feel like everybody's missed it. Probably like me, your really only focus on home safety was in kindergarten. Most Americans, that's it. The fire truck pulls in when you're in kindergarten, they pass out red plastic hats. You steal one from the little girl next to you. So that didn't happen. Someone stole yours. And the whole goal of that is really to get you familiar with what a firefighter looks like when he's dressed up like Darth Vader and breathing, through the mask, so that if there's ever a fire in your house and a firefighter comes to rescue you, you're not going to go the opposite direction. You're going to go, "Oh, I remember that guy from the visit at kindergarten. He's good. He's going to help me get out of here." And then that's it. It kind of falls into the same category as, they don't teach you to balance your checkbook in school. I don't even think anybody does that anymore anyway. But, there's so many different things that's it. And so now we have all these people are offering these rental properties based on almost no education at all and trying to say that, "Hey, come stay here. Trust me. I've set this property up. You're going to have a great vacation and everything's going to go great because you can trust me based on my stellar kindergarten safety education."
Okay, that's true. I hadn't thought about it. I was just in Europe. We were in Czechia. We drove there from Berlin to spend a few days in the Jewish quarter there. And we were staying at an Airbnb. This guy there was a 4.9. He manages more than one property. They got into it like you're talking about. They fell into it because he came over from the States and was married to a lady from there. And he said something to me that caught my attention after we checked in. I got this. It said, "Just ignore the open electrical socket in the kitchen. I'm doing we're doing some remodeling there." And I thought, I am so glad I don't have children or curious children or anything like that. I actually know exactly where you're coming from. So what are some of the things that you're passionate about safety wise or what can
You
we
know,
do to educate ourselves? Where are you going? Tell me where you're going with it so we can,
yeah,
yeah.
safety is an interesting thing. Most people hear it and go, "This is boring." And hopefully, people who are listening to this podcast that have made this far, trust me, in our time here together, Lynell, you and I aren't going to talk about anything boring. Um, but I get that perception, and I think I've been successful. I've been doing this for this focus on safety that I'm on. I've been doing this for 11 years now. Um, and I've made it interesting enough, like Good Morning America, Today Show, people have me on and they want to talk about it. And I go present all over the world on it. So I feel like I've done that. I wish the rest of the industry followed suit and was doing it. But what's interesting, and you speak of Europeans, I was just in Paris and London. There's a bigger focus on safety in Europe. And it comes down to something as basic as this. Go back to the firefighters again. Again, I was a firefighter for 15 years, so no offense to firefighters. But they don't have chili cook-offs with fire departments in Great Britain or Ireland. Those guys are out proactively, constantly working on different ways to address safety. Whereas in the U.S., we typically have a reactive focus on safety. Yeah, we'll deal with it when it happens. I got a lawyer. He's really good. If somebody sues me, I'm good. Or I've got really good insurance. I'm paying 15,000 a month. I'm covered. No matter what happens, I'm good to go. And that mentality, we're alone in the world like that, by the way. Americans are. And so I'm trying to change that perception that that's not the right angle of attack. And when it comes to short-term rentals, people don't realize it's like the hottest growth right now in the legal circuit. Like if you're an ambulance chasing lawyer right now, vacation rentals are hot. You
Really?
are, oh my goodness, you are getting so much. I mean, just Google. Don't do this after this episode, but Google vacation rental accident. If you don't get 1 million pages of returns of every lawyer in the United States right now soliciting for that, and if you have kids right now that are trying to figure out what to do, tell them about being a forensic architect. That's who these attorneys hire to come into your rental properties and point out that your handrail wasn't long enough and that's why someone slipped, or that your lighting wasn't perfect on the walkway, and that's why the guest fell when they were going into the property. So um it's a big problem, especially in the US, and people need to grasp that.
So, all right. So I know here where I am, we do annual inspections. They do safety inspections.
Yep.
The porches now, because of accidents that have happened along the Carolina coast, they're required to have some engineering type of certifications that say, yes, it's okay. I know that just this past week, my nephew's getting married and he's staying at one of the houses down the beach. And he was like, but I can't do the reception there for 50 or 60 people. And he said, I don't understand why. I said, because the porch could fall in on you. That's
Yeah.
why, because it can't support that weight. So I know that those inspections are important. What other kinds of things do we need to do to ensure that we are safe?
Yeah, and so I love that you brought this up, 'cause the deck collapses are certainly one. You step outside of short-term rentals, it's a known fact. Washington Post has done investigative stories on this. More than 50% of all decks in the United States right now are prone to some sort of failure. Last year, we saw more deck collapses than we've ever seen. And part of it is because lumber prices skyrocketed during the pandemic. People couldn't afford to repair their decks, and so they're still going forward with them. But decks are a small part. As many deck collapses as we see, the regulations haven't caught up what we're doing. So, for example, if you go into a hotel, last year in the United States, 7 people died in hotel fires. And generally speaking, those were room and content type fires. 4 of them were because the guests themselves disabled the smoke alarm and the cigarette that they were smoking caught the bed on fire when they fell asleep. So really, when you hone it down, it's pretty unlikely you're going to die from a fire in a hotel in the United States. Yet we saw hundreds of people die in short-term rental fires. And the reason we saw that is because although you've been inspected and you've got your permit, that's for that moment. It's not, generally speaking, a connected, monitored alarm system. And so guests are coming in. You take, for example, where you are in North Carolina. Last summer, there was a fire that killed 3 people in the Outer Banks. The smoke alarms didn't have batteries. They didn't hear the smoke alarms going off. So they were there at the beginning of the summer. Why in August they weren't? Well, because someone burnt popcorn and pulled them out. There's nobody constantly checking and looking at these, and those products aren't designed for that. And so really, when you dive even deeper, most short-term rentals are commercial use. You've got the general public coming in, people you've never met, people you may never see again. And then they're making decisions in these properties to use things differently than what you intended. And then they're using all these things that weren't designed for commercial use, and then all these issues are happening. So that's the big problem.
That's very intriguing, and I get where you're going with that. We have I have a Wolf stove in my rental. It has 9 eyes. One of those is 16,000 BTU grill. I just got it this season, so I don't know. I do know that I have smoke alarms that are monitored by CPI security, that they
Yeah, those are
can't disarm those, hopefully, because they would let us know.
but you're
But
in the
I'm
one
taking
minority with that.
I'm
Most people
taking that grill out, though. I won't let that is not for commercial use. And I didn't think about it at the time when I bought it. It was the only one available, believe it or not. You know how shortages have been. And my whole floor was destroyed by water, the bottom floor. So all this thing had to be redone. So I'm taking it out literally of the stove. So it cannot be used. There's a metal plate that goes on it because exactly for that reason. I'm concerned that someone will start a fire. And even with the fire alarm, I'm concerned they'll start a fire. So what kinds of things can we do in our homes, and where can we learn what to do? As vacation rental managers, how can we learn? I mean, most of us have some education. The people that I know have education. The people that are doing the new Airbnbs that are growing their business from, 5, 6 properties, they don't. And I
Right.
understand they don't have that education. What can we do today to help them find resources for better safety? Because yes, we all have umbrella policies. We're making sure that our insurance is up and all that type of thing. But what can we do? Where do we go for resources, Justin?
Yeah, that's good. 4 quick things before we go forward. I'm going to be real quick on these 4 things. One, I'm a proponent of short-term rentals. My wife has one, so I want to make sure people know that. I'm not here like as the guy to ban them. I want them. I like them. They're great. Number 2, alcohol, and I want to talk more about that. That's the biggest thing that people don't consider when they're renting out their properties is the factor of alcohol. Number 3 is insurance. Insurance companies are getting out of this business. When I first got started in vacation rentals in 1997, you went to any agent and went, yeah, I want to rent this place out. And they went, okay, yeah, no problem. Now there are less than 20 companies in the United States that will insure, and most of them are dropping or raising the policies. Insurers are done with all the incidents, the shock losses. They don't want to do it anymore. And that's probably one of the greatest threats to our industry right now is insurance. Um, and number 4, going back now to what's your question, what are the resources? There are a tremendous amount of resources. I'm not here to sell it, but I'm going to be honest with you. I've written the only safety course in the world. We have an Australian version, a Spanish version, a Central American version. It's the only thing, and it accounts for everything that you didn't touch upon. When you get these permits or these inspections. Yeah, deck collapse is awful, but that's like less than 0.001% of incidents. It slips, trips, and falls are the number one cause of incidents. 83% of all insurance claims for short-term rental slips, trips, and falls. And yet there is not one single government inspection program in the United States that addresses that. So people will go out, they go, hey, my house is safe. The fire chief just came in and did an inspection. And it's like, then the next day they have an incident. And they're like, what the heck? I thought I was good to go. The fire chief said I was good to go. No,
Yeah.
you weren't.
So slips, trips, and falls. What are some of the things that we can do to prevent these?
Lighting. Let's look at some of these statistics. There's not a lot out there. I've had to develop a lot of my own. North Carolina has been a great feeder market, by the way, for statistics. The Outer Banks, Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills, Nags Head, that whole market there is really isolated. In the wintertime, we know there's a fixed number of people, 40,000 residents there. But in the summertime, it goes to well over 100,000. So we can look at the Outer Banks Hospital, look at type of records, ambulance calls, and go, wait a minute. In the summer, we're seeing all these slips, trips, and falls related incidents we don't see in the wintertime. So that's part of it. The other has been the insurance industry giving these statistics. And so when we look at these, we realize most slips, trips, and falls happen within an hour of arrival. Okay, people aren't familiar with the property. They're showing up and they're trying to get from their car into the house. And if you think about it, when you have a guest over, when your friends or your neighbors come to visit, you greet them at the door and you tell them, hey, watch out right there. That walkway's got a little crack, and you welcome them in and you make sure that they're safe. Most cases with a short-term rental, no one's there. And so these people are showing up, they're tired, they've been driving 8 hours, or they've been flying all day, they've gone to the grocery store, they're dealing with traffic. And now they got to get from their car, where they're not sure if they parked it in the right spot or not, into the property. And then we take a closer look and realize 60% of these incidents are happening after 10 o'clock at night. Okay, so pretty much every guest who arrives during darkness at your property is most likely going to slip, trip, or fall coming in because maybe you haven't done good lighting. Now they're using their cell phone light to get out of their car, navigate with their luggage. No one's there saying, here, walk this way, walk around that, get up that, open that gate, and you're in. And so we've got to take this realistic look and go, wait a minute, I got to show up at my house at night and pretend I'm the renter, pretend there's 6 cars now in the driveway, and I got 2 pieces of luggage and my kids are yelling at me. Now, how do I navigate into this house? And if you can't do it, neither can they.
Vacation rental managers utilize LiveRes and their powerful software that goes beyond the standard. LiveRes empowers you to operate your business the way you want, while offering you powerful support and access to a community of partners and experts to grow your vacation rental business. LiveRes' industry differentiator is software plus support, community, and service, with high converting websites included to get you started. Learn more at liveres.com.
That's very good advice. So perhaps also in the pre-arrival information, if there's something that is concerning for that specific house, then it can be, included in their packet. Don't forget that when it's dark, the lights outside are located on the pilings right down below you. Click here, here's where you turn them on if you arrive late. I don't know. I mean, that would be one way to do it. What other types of
I think automation is there today. Automated lights, timer lights, nights that come on with sensors, that sense darkness.
Yeah.
But again, the whole pathway needs to be illuminated. And here's what I like what you said on the warnings, but this is something you got to pay close attention to. Last May, the North Carolina Supreme Court, and this is the first time this has ever happened at a state level, they made a decision based on a pool drowning case that happened in the Outer Banks. 2 days after a family was vacationing at the property, enjoying the house, everything's going great, another family member showed up, and the 2-year-old drowned in the pool because the pool alarm wasn't working. Well, they sued the management company and the homeowner for the pool alarm not working, and the management company came back and said, no, you can't sue us. You indemnified us when you signed the rental agreement. Well, this is what the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled. They said, no. The only person who's indemnified you is the person who signed the agreement. So now there's 2 decisions we've got to make out of that. Number one is, do we have everybody sign the rental agreement? Well, that's not really going to work, and that's pretty hard to do. Number 2, now we need to recognize that there are high incident points out of our property. Pool alarms, grills, fireplaces, deck loads, as you mentioned. I've identified potentially at a house that has hot tub, pool, grills, all, golf carts, all the different amenities. There might be 20 points of really high potential for incident that we need now to put signage at. And signage is key because you can't send it or say, well, you got to look at it. It was in the guidebook. It was in the book on the counter. No, you got to put a sign on your door that says close this door and make sure the pool alarm works every time. Because Uncle Bobby, who showed up 2 days late, he's not reading any of that stuff. And now your state has identified this, and other states are going to follow that as well.
I'll have to look at that because I don't have alarms. I have locks. They literally have to be lifted like a commercial lock
Yeah, North
unit.
Carolina doesn't require alarms. Florida does, California, other states do, which, by the way, while we're quickly on pools are the most deadly form of usage of a short-term rental. Over 300 kids drowned in short-term rental pools in the United States last year. Insurance claims went up last year from 3 to 4% to over 15% of the leading insurer, Proper Insurance. People are going, holy smokes, we got to nip this in the problem, in the bud, because this is bad. Pool drownings are really bad now at short-term rentals.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, I should have guessed that. I don't think I've ever thought along these lines. I know most property managers have. It's been a long time since I was doing vacation rental management. Wow.
I've been doing this long enough now that I have to tell you, the worst part about my job is I can walk up to somebody and see in their face in the industry, they know who I am. I can see it in their eyes. I'm like, you've lost a guest, haven't you? And they're like, yeah, you can tell. And the pool drownings are the worst. Knowing whether you were the cleaner that's been hired to be that last person at the property, or the inspector, or you're the host that's hosting the property and you were the last one there, knowing that there was something that you could have done that prevented that, I can see it in people's eyes. It's something that stays with you for the rest of your life. And it's so simple and cheap. It's ridiculous how cheap it is. People say, well, I can't control the guests. Once they're there, how do I control? You can't, but you can arm them with information. I don't care if that sticker looks ugly on your sliding glass door. Put it there and make it the kind that you can peel off when you're there. I don't know. But put that there and remind them, warning, keep this door closed at all times with alarm secured. If they then do it, you at least can feel a little bit better that you made an attempt to educate them and warn them. But telling them in a guest guide, pool safety is important, that's not going to get you anywhere. They're not going to read it. They're on vacation. They don't care.
Well, wow. That is a sobering thought. That truly is. Tell me about what other kinds of things do we need to think about? Because if pools are number one, falls, slips.
Trips and falls are the number one cause of injury. Pool drowning is the number one cause of death. And I mentioned, my quick list of 4 there, alcohol. Let's talk about alcohol for a minute. So a survey was done last year of North American travelers. And when they interviewed these North American travelers, 73%, so basically 3/4 of Americans acknowledge that when they go on vacation, they're going to reach some level of intoxication that would be considered drunk. Okay, that makes sense. My friends and I were just up at a ski condo. We drank old fashions. I know I had a buzz one night. It happens. That's what we do. But when we do that on a cruise ship, we got security and hey, Mr. Ford, time to go back to your cabin. And when we're in a hotel, we're getting a little out of control, security comes and knocks on the door. But now we have these people that are showing up in your home that aren't familiar with it. And 3/4 of them are going to be making impaired judgments. And this is the other interesting thing from that survey. Half of them said they don't do it in their home. So they're not even experienced at being drunk at a home. They're going to come into your home that they're not familiar with and make decisions while they're under some level of intoxication. And the root of most of the deadly incidents that we've seen in this industry, or some of the worst incidents, have involved alcohol. Now, the final part of that is the smoke alarm. You've got a monitor home. That's awesome. You're in the minority. I wish more people did. It's worth the expense. But we know that people don't wake up to smoke alarms when they're intoxicated. We know they don't wake up to smoke alarms when they're age 2 to 12 because kids just don't wake up to them. And we know that over 60, as people have hearing disabilities, they also don't wake up. So pretty much that covers everybody in your property isn't going to wake up to the most basic smoke alarm sound. So we're already behind the curve there. And there's a lot of things that we need to do to address that.
What kinds of things other than monitor? I'm just thinking to myself after this podcast, I'm going to make sure the one upstairs is they've gotten that it's monitored upstairs and downstairs. I know the one downstairs is, I think the one upstairs is, I'm not positive, but I think I think that everybody, is, okay. So I know that, I did rental software for a long time.
Yep.
And I know that we have, most of the property managers I worked with did annual inspections, for all kinds of stuff, but they also did quarterly inspections. How often should we inspect for our smoke alarms? I guess the battery should be every single time that the housekeeper goes in.
Yeah, they should. So again, going back to the fact that our products that are in our homes aren't designed for commercial use. The alarm system you have, a monitored alarm, those are designed that they need an annual cleaning. So once a year, the guys are supposed to come in from your alarm company, compressed air, vacuums, they clean them out because dust gets in them. The residential alarms, the consumer brand ones that are $30 that you get at Lowe's or Home Depot, if you look, every single one of those has a lengthy maintenance section in the instructions. Kitty, first alert, I don't care what it is. And they all say they have to be vacuumed once a month. And I can assure you, none of your listeners are vacuuming their smoke alarms once a month. Yet that's what they're supposed to do. If you don't want to do that in your own home, great. But now you have the general public coming in that trust you. And if you're not doing that, that dust quickly builds up. We bring a lot more dust into the home when we have vacation renters coming in because they're bringing in luggage and lots of different clothes, those cheap beach towels from the beach stores, all that kind of stuff. And then they set off the alarm. Dust gets into the alarm. The reason smoke alarms go off in the middle of the night, 1, 2 in the morning, is because movement is completely stopped in the property and the dwelling. And then that dust just settles down, trips it. Renters pull the battery and go, there's no fire. And then they move on about their business. They don't tell you. So we need to check smoke alarms every single turnover. We need to vacuum them once a month, document that we're vacuuming them. And then most importantly, we need to take on the attitude of when there's a fire versus, wow, if there was ever a fire here, I don't know what would happen. No, you need to, guess what, folks? There was over 400,000 structure fires in the United States last year. Your house is going to catch on fire someday. I hope it isn't tomorrow. I hope it isn't next week, but you got to go. It's going to catch on fire. The odds are there. When it happens, what happens? How do people know?
No, and we are so underprepared. I can tell you that at my house in Texas, I had we moved in the house, it was an older house. My husband had purchased, and we got married, we moved in. And we had a fire in the kitchen, and the stove caught on fire. Even today, I'm not exactly sure why that caught on fire. We had gas, and I think that what happened, because the fireman came out, what happened was I cleaned it, and water got into under where if you would take the cap off the gas stove, water got into that area. So it caused a fire, and literally my husband looked at me when he happened to be walking by and yelled for me. He saw it, and he had no idea what to do. He just stood there. He said, I have no idea what to do. And I said, here's what we do. So, I'm in action. And I'm calling I called 911. I called the fire department. I'm sorry, there's a fire. I'm going to call the fire department. I'm going to stop it as much as I can, and then I'm going to call the fire department. We did, and they're awesome, and they came out. But I agree with you. It's not if it can happen. At some point in your life, you're going to be exposed to fire. It's the second time in my life. We had a grease fire when I was a young girl, and we were cooking and frying in grease, and that caught on fire. So what are the kinds of things we can do in our rental houses to help our renters prepare in case something were to happen?
Yeah. You've got to accept that it is on you. The old Lyndon Johnson statement, the buck stops here. I'm here to tell you it's that. I travel a lot, speaking and talking about safety and working with governments and agencies all over the world. And I was on a flight recently, where the woman just ahead of me in first class had wine spilled on her by the stewardess. And she was chewing this stewardess up and down for spilling a couple of drops of wine on her. And I'm going, this is ridiculous. And I thought it was over, and I was about to say something because and you'll understand why when I tell you what this is in a minute. But then the woman started attacking the stewardess again because she thought she saw the stewardess laughing. The stewardess was smiling, welcoming a new guest. She was an amazing stewardess because she knew that she can't let one customer pull her down. She's got to keep smiling for everybody. I spoke up. I'm a safety guy. I said to the woman, I said, excuse me, you need to stop right now because that woman is here to save our life, not serve you wine. And I don't want her flustered if we have an incident on this plane that she's thinking about how upset you are at her and how it could affect her job. I want her ready to help me get off this plane in a fire. And everybody started clapping, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I don't mind speaking up. But that just happened in Japan. 289 people got off of a plane that crashed that should not have survived in January. If that had been in America, they wouldn't have survived because Japan has had this strong structure of safety, and people in Japan know the stewardess is there not to serve you wine. They're there to take care of you. And so the mentality that we need to have as hosts, as operators, as managers, as people taking care of these properties is first and foremost, they trust me. I'm here to make sure that when these guests walk into this house, that they can be safe. And of course, I have all the resources for that. I've learned. I had a tragedy at one of my rental properties. I don't talk about it very often, but somebody was permanently disabled because of actions that I could have potentially avoided by making sure that they were safe, and I didn't. And so I think about that all the time. I think about that woman's name every day. Every time I wake up, I don't want somebody else to experience that. But now because of that, I went, well, how am I supposed to know? I made a checklist. I've developed a safety course. The safety course can be done online, 4 to 6 hours. And you do it. The only reason someone's going to get hurt in your property is because they tie their shoelaces together or they drop the banana peel on the floor and, they slip on it.
So I know this is your passion. Would you come back and speak to us again about it? Because I'm interested in other things you have to say about safety and properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just did a session in Montana. I spoke to the Montana Code Enforcement Association, and they wanted me to speak for 4 hours. And I said, these people are going to go get so bored after 4 hours.
No.
And they didn't want to break. And at the end of my 4 hours, they're like, can you stay this afternoon? I'm like, holy smokes, I've got to be the only safety guy out there that people want to listen to this long. But
definitely not bored. I just want to say thank you for being with us. And when I saw that, because I saw in the notes, I saw in the notes that you were talking about safety, but I wasn't going to hold you to that until we sat down and I was going to say, what is your passion? Because I feel like if you're going to take your time to come and talk to me, then I want you to talk about what you're passionate about. If people want to reach out to you or they want to talk to you about this course that you have for them, how can they reach you, Justin?
There's a lot of different ways. Short-term rental safety. So follow that on. I do these funny things where, like on Instagram, I share all kinds of tips and tricks, and I do reels, and I try and make it funny. Sometimes my daughter plays the crazy renter that doesn't know how to do something, and I educate her on how to be safe. On LinkedIn, I do a lot more politically motivated around the safety in our industry type of discussions under short-term rental safety. And then Facebook, I share all the tragic stories that unfortunately happen every day in our industry, short-term rental safety on Facebook. But justinford.expert is my website with all kinds of resources, links to every interview, TV segment, everything I've ever done, as well as the safety course. And I work for Breezeway, which is a software company that helps people maintain their properties, clean them, inspect them. It's the leading software for that, and I'm their resident expert on safety. And so when you use Breezeway, you get access to my safety checklist, that type of stuff.
Okay, so guys, reach out if you have any questions or wanting more information. Great guy, great resource. Thank you, Justin, for being with me. I really appreciate it. And I'm holding you to part 2.
Absolutely. Part 2.
All right. Thank you.
This episode of How We Grow is brought to you by LiveRes. To find out more about how LiveRes can help grow your vacation rental business, visit liveres.com. Make sure to search for How We Grow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.